Rexburg. Welcome to today's episode 18 of the Rexburg Hustle. We are very excited to be here with you guys today. Guys, if you have not done so yet, please make sure to like, to share, to subscribe, all of that kind of stuff so we can continue to grow this podcast. Guys, just a reminder, we have volume 1 of the Rexburg Hustle, The Untold Stories. That is going to be coming out here in the coming months. It'll be the first 20 episodes transcribed, as well as the additional stories from our guests that were not told on the Rexburg Hustle during the podcast. So we will give you guys more details as the book gets closer, but it is in the works right now. We're really, really excited about it. Anyway, Travis, how are you today?
I'm good. Let me borrow this thing so we can hear each other real quick. Yeah, we're doing good, and we're very, very excited about the book, as Rick was talking about. There's going to be some great information there. The stuff that we can't put on video is going to be in the book. You really got to get that. So I'm doing well. I'm doing really well. We're excited for the show today. We've got some great guests with some exciting stories. Unfortunately, we can't share all the stories that we talked about before the show. We've got some crazy stuff that we learned. It was exciting about the tabernacle. It was one of the funnest pre-shows, learning about, anyway, a lot of things about the museum and the tabernacle. But let me introduce them. Jackie Rawlins is the curator for the Museum of Rexburg, home of the Teton flood exhibit, and cultural arts director for the city of Rexburg. She moved to Rexburg with her family 14 years ago. Her and her husband, Kirk, have been married for almost 27 years and have 6 kids ranging from 7 to 25. Before working for the city, Jackie was the business owner and volunteered for 9 years with the city of Rexburg. With the Rexburg Community Theater. Yeah. That's right, and choreographer and director as well. She is currently over the restoration project of the Romance Theater and running a production, which we're going to talk about in a little bit, of The Lion King Jr. There's 60 kids involved, ages 6 to 18. Just a great, great program. We also want to welcome Alisha Tietjen. We're excited that she's here as well. She is the assistant curator for the Museum of Rexburg and came to Rexburg in the fall of 2002. So you've been here just a little while. That's great. To attend BYU Idaho and graduated from BYU Idaho in 2008. She's married to a local boy, Anthony Tietjen, and almost 16 years ago. They've got 4 children, 3 boys and a girl, and she started volunteering at the museum in fall of 2016 and then was hired in 2017. So we're excited that you're both here. We're excited to learn what you're doing, about the programs you're doing, the restoration projects, and anyway, you've got a lot of great things to share. We're excited to hear from you.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah,
we're super excited to be here.
Well, good. Well, we're excited to have you ladies here as well. Now, again, we can't talk about everything about the pre-show, but again, that was one of the best pre-shows we've ever had. It was so fascinating to me. Get the book. Yeah. Now, one thing I want to talk about, when I first moved here to Rexburg, I've been here for about 11 years, and the Teton Flood Museum was one of the first places I ever visited in Rexburg.
Right.
Now, the Teton Flood Museum, it's not called that anymore. So one thing I guess I want to ask is, as we're talking about the museum today, how did that transition come about from the Teton Flood Museum to what it is today? Because I know it's quite a bit different.
Right. So I was hired in November of 2015. And from November 2015 into February of 2016, I'd have people come down to the museum and actually get upset with me when they would realize that all the artifacts that we had down there were not from the flood, because it was called the Teton Flood Museum.
Where were those artifacts from?
They're just from the local people.
Oh,
and
interesting.
From the history
Okay.
and from families. And so it tells the history of our area. There's not artifacts left because they'd not be able to be left. It's hazardous to have those sitting around and breathing in all the toxic fumes from them and things like that. So I literally would have these people from out of town come into there and get upset with me that how dare we have a museum that's called the Teton Flood Museum and not have it full of things from the flood. So I went for a few months and thought, what can we do to resolve this? So we're not taken away from that history, because we still have an area that we want to have the flood room where we have the pictures and we can tell the story and show the film, but still portray that it's about the history of Rexburg and Madison County. And so I went before the city council and asked them if we could possibly change the name to the Museum of Rexburg, home of the Teton Flood exhibit. So that's how the name change came about. They approved it, and we've not had too many people as upset. There's a few, but not as many.
Yeah, that's good. It's never good to upset people
I
at a
know.
museum. That's
Exactly.
kind of the last place you'd expect to come and be upset.
It was surprising to me, but
Yeah.
that's what it was.
So that was kind of and your role in the city, that was kind of one of your first big changes that you made.
It was, yeah.
What are some of the other big changes that have happened at the museum and in your position in general?
Right. So when I started there, we just had one other volunteer, and it was just me. When I came on, Mayor Merrill was just elected, and we had a few new council members too. And as I came on, their support of the museum also increased from the past. And so more money was budgeted in to take care of the museum. And so we were able to do what past curators were not able to do. And what we were able to do is actually clean it up, rearrange it, pull out more artifacts. We found a box that had a little leather purse in it, had all these little things in it, like a mirror and a powder puff and a metal bracelet, and a little note in it that was basically said it was the last handbag of a little girl that was 9 years old that had died. And she died of appendicitis. And we realized then, as I read that was the story. And that was the direction the museum needed to go. We needed to find the stories of these artifacts instead of just having a museum of things. We had like 10 beet knives, for the sugar beets. Well, that's great. Why do you need 10 knives, right? But then we found one that was connected to a young man that he had used to save up all the money to buy his engagement ring. Now you have a story, and it connects your heart to heart. So that's the direction that we've taken the museum.
Yep.
We're putting out the artifacts, looking for the stories over time, and we're going to be building upon that.
And how difficult has it been to find those stories?
It's been very difficult. That was my first job, was to research all the stories. And it's actually hard because a lot of people don't record those stories. And we have to just kind of go off of what we can find in the records that we have, and as well as family search. So get out there, put some stories out. We also have people that come in and say, well, where's my great-grandmother's so-and-so or whatever? And we have to just kind of go off of, try and connect that with what they describe, because sometimes the records got lost, especially with the flood. We lost a lot of records, and so it's been interesting to try and connect that.
And there's a lot of items, too,
that
we don't have that people say we should have. They've been lost over time from moving from one place to another, or from young curator or volunteers or things like that. And so we're trying to organize all that, and we're putting it into a digital format, and to cataloging it and taking pictures and giving them numbers, and so that will never happen again.
I think that's incredible what you just said about the flood and so much that was lost.
Yeah.
In that, we talk about the destruction of the flood, but not the loss of history and these kind of things. That's very intriguing. Is there a certain artifact or anything that's certainly old, specifically older, that really stands out that's there at the museum?
Well, for me, that's the World's Fair quilt.
Absolutely.
The Desire quilt. That is our favorite. It was first sewn by Jenny Stevens. She was an Idaho resident, and she had a vision about this quilt, what she should make. And she took 2 years to make it, and she won the gold medal at the World's Trade Fair. And then she wanted it to be donated to a museum here in Idaho. So it ended up here because the families were here, and it actually survived the flood. It was in a box on top of a top shelf, and the water came up just below the shelf where it was sitting at. So it's been saved, and we've also are trying to raise money to conserve it.
Well, and that was actually going to be my next question, is you have these quilts and things that are so delicate after so many years. What is the museum able to do? What's within your power to preserve some of this?
We try our hardest to, within our means, to take care of the things that we have. But things like quilts, for instance, like that one, we don't have the budget to be able to do it in the proper way. So what we can do is to try to keep it into climate control the best that we can, use the right type of lights, which we do down in the museum. A lot of people don't realize that, but the lights we have down there are special lights.
Okay.
So we do it within our means, and then we put up a box for donations and hope people will see that and feel free, the desire to put in $1 or something like that. So in the next year or two, we can have the money to be able to preserve those. So we do it with what we have. Try to get grants, things like that. But we are so much further ahead
we were.
we were 3 or 4 years ago.
That's wonderful to hear. I'm glad. And one thing that you pointed out, I love going to museums and just seeing neat old stuff. In fact, I've been to a few of them, and I really love seeing just the antiques and wondered what the history is behind some of this.
Yeah.
So when you mention not just having old stuff in the museum, but attaching a history, a story behind it, that is so much more valuable.
Well, that's how we really connect, right? I mean, stories connect our heart to heart.
Oh, yeah. I love that.
When it's also useful for when we have residents that come in with their families, they can share stories, and then you see one story about a beat knife, and then they share another story, and it just the feeling that comes when families are there together sharing stories, and that feeling of family bond is just strengthened, and that's what we're kind of going.
You know, and what a community to do this in.
Right?
You know, finding those stories, getting those family bonds, because we are America's family community. I mean, that's kind of what Rexburg is all about.
It is.
So yeah, so that's neat that you guys are just further facilitating what our community is all about. So now, just kind of as a side note before we move on, because I know we have a really exciting exhibit to talk about.
Yes.
But one thing is, how busy is the museum? Are you guys getting the traffic through there that you'd like to? Or are there some people that maybe don't even know it exists?
We get that question a lot.
Do you? Okay.
Yeah, so when we started 3 years ago, when I started, the numbers weren't as good as they are now.
Okay.
And so we've increased a lot. With that said, I will say the majority of our numbers are not locals.
Yep.
Locals still say, oh, I have not been there in 10, 15, 20 years. They
Or
don't
I've already
think
been
about
there.
it. Or I've already been there once, I don't need to go again.
Right.
Not realizing that we have redone the whole thing. It's only $2 for adults 18 and older, and any child 4 to 17
It's
is
a
$1.
Oh wow.
And
You
if
know,
you
so
have-
Pretty affordable,
it's pretty
family
affordable
activity.
family thing too.
Yeah.
So come when you bring someone
And
from out of
there's-
town, or
and
come
there's lots of
during the
activities
summer.
to do. It's just not walking through the museum. We have scavenger hunts, we have children's room, we have a video, we have a sand table, and we have a lot of things you can do there.
Well, because I think for a long time the museum was pretty static. Is that
Yeah.
correct?
It was,
It was
And
just
now
the
it's
same
totally
thing,
And-
which
and
is why
again, I
people
wanna
go
make-
once.
I want to make a point,
Yeah.
and it wasn't due to the curators before us.
Yeah.
Correct,
It really
right.
was about the fact that the city had other priorities, which was totally understandable.
Mhm.
I always joke that I'm culture arts. I'm not the police department. I'm not the fire department.
Right.
I understand my role and what my budget needs to be.
Mhm.
We just are in a time that we can find some money now to support these things.
Yeah.
Right.
And we're very lucky. And so while we have that support, because you never know what the economy is going to do,
That's right.
we're going to use that support and do as much as we can.
Yeah. Oh, I think that's great. Now, Rexburg, if you guys have not been to this museum, you're going to want to go, especially soon, because there's a really, really cool exhibit,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
Let's talk a little bit about that. Why don't you make the official announcement on the Rexburg Hustle about
Oh.
what's going on?
So I guess that's my turn. So we are really excited to bring to Rexburg the Apollo 11 Redux exhibit. So this exhibit is all the way from Kansas. It's from the Cosmosphere Museum there. And what it is an actual piece of the console that was used in the Johnson Space Center in Houston, Texas during the Apollo moon landing. And so the people actually sat at this console and watched the monitors and pushed the buttons to help get the astronauts to the moon.
And home.
And home. That's right. I always forget that part. They got him to the moon. And then, so you can actually, it's not housed in our museum. It's out at the Legacy Flight Museum because we have some space issues. It's a very large exhibit. And so we're working with that museum to help with that. So if you go out there, you get a ticket from the Legacy Flight Museum that will give you the admission to their museum as well as free admission to ours.
If you get that ticket.
And so you go out there and you can sit at the console and do some activities. And there's also another little exhibit that you can watch videos and see photos and learn more about the people who ran the consoles.
And then at our museum is we actually have a documentary of the actual landing in the moon that you can watch, and we have the timeline so you can see exactly how much time it took from when they left the Earth to when they returned to the Earth. So we're trying to do a sister exhibit there so people are getting their money's worth.
And we also have a technology through the decades that we talk about all the technology that not all the technology, but some of the technology that has come out since the moon landing. So from the 70s to the 2000s.
Oh, we got some great Walkman.
That's
Things
awesome.
like that.
It's awesome. And the things that are in there are all the things that are now in your smartphone. So it's kind of fun to go through, and it's really nostalgic for some people to see, like she said, a Walkman or even a GameCube,
Right.
you know,
Right.
an Atari.
Boy, that ages us, doesn't it?
Right.
Oh my gosh.
And we have a touch table that has an electric keyboard, a typewriter, so that kids can go and type on that and experience that. And there's also flip phones and games that we would have played back in the 80s and 90s, so like Minesweeper.
Nice. Good old Minesweeper. Now, one question I have. Now, I know there's a lot of skeptics out there about the moon landing. They're saying it was staged. It was all, Is there enough at this exhibit to say, guys, this really happened?
I think so.
I agree with that.
But we've already gotten a few people out there
so.
that have come up to our employees
Really?
and want to talk about it. And,
Okay.
and our standard thing is that's very interesting. Give us the information of where we could look that up on our own. And, and please enjoy our exhibit.
Yeah, good.
You know?
Awesome. Okay.
We want to be respectful for everybody because
For sure. Everybody has their own opinion.
That's exactly right.
Exactly. So I believe we went. I mean, I don't know why we'd lie about it.
Right?
I figure the country has better things to do than that. So, that's awesome. What else can you tell us about that exhibit? So half of it's going to be at the Legacy Flight Museum. It's available now.
Yes, and it opened up Monday, and it will be there through September 30th. So we're really excited to be able to have schools come. And so, and to be able to have all kids from all over Southeast Idaho. This isn't just for Rexburg. This is for all of Southeast Idaho. And this is, right now there are 6 of these exhibits that are traveling around the United States. There will be 6 more later, but this is the only one signed up to come to Idaho. So this is a once-in-a-lifetime chance to come see a piece of history and actually touch it and be involved, because most of the time you can't touch history.
Go.
So
Rexburg, go. Go see it. Go check it out. I'm going to. Absolutely. Now, you guys have also reached a pretty big milestone with having a certain exhibit come to Rexburg. Let's talk a little bit about that because, Jackie, this was one of your main goals when you started your position.
Yeah.
So let's talk a little bit about what's happening and the exciting
Absolutely.
news.
So, you do your dream boards with work and anything else in your life. And one of the first goals that I put down is I wanted a traveling exhibit from the Smithsonian as the museum curator. And the Smithsonian actually has traveling exhibits for small museums. And they have different themes all the time. And so we were actually chosen as one place in Idaho to have it come to, and it will be coming here in March of 2020. And it's Smithsonian on the Main Street is what they call this program. It will take over our whole museum. We will be cleaning out our museum. It will take the 2 main aisles of our museum, and then we are responsible for actually doing a whole exhibit that takes the 3rd aisle. So we have 3 aisles. It takes 2 aisles. We have to come up with an exhibit, and it has to be connected to our area. So we're actually already working on that right now. We're doing the research of the history of our area, and which is fascinating because a lot of people think the LDS Mormon pioneers that came here and that's the history. We are diving into the fact that there is a area that was called the Germantown that a lot of people don't know that was out, I think, towards the Burton area. Which area was that?
it was in town.
It was in town. Yeah, so there was the Germantown. There was a lot of Japanese Americans that were in this area that people don't know about. So we're diving into all of that history.
And lots of other religions.
And a lot of religions that came up in this area. So we're going to have a part of that display will be about that. A little part will be about the farmers up here. What was the land like before the flood? How they tamed this area. And then what happened after the flood and how they retamed it. That's part of our history here. And so there's a few other things that we'll be diving into, but that will be our exhibit because it's supposed to be about what is our history in all these different aspects so people can really start learning some things they didn't know before. They know about the university. That's all. Everybody knows about that. But what else don't you know?
And we're hoping to be able to connect the students and the locals together closer and to help them realize that we're more alike than we are different because of our history. So
I was actually in one of our previous episodes we had a guest on that talked about what they're doing is what you just mentioned is trying to connect more of the college and the community together so they're not just dividing line and boundary.
Yeah.
And so do you have any more thoughts about that? Because I think that's really important to try to pull that culture, well, both cultures together into one. You in the pre-show we talked about the museum and what you were doing with bonding in mindset, the family atmosphere, thinking alike, trying to really bond and unite and come together as one whole purpose. I'm just wondering, how can we better pull the college and that culture in?
So I feel with our staff right now, I am the only one from Idaho.
Oh.
In our staff. All of them, we have from Florida, North Carolina, Canada,
They're all college students.
They're all
or
college students,
recent
and they're all
graduates.
from all over. And so it brings in a diversity, and that people that are coming in, they can connect to that.
That's great.
And they can feel that. And I feel that is helping us to be able to cross some bridges there.
And that's the same with the culture arts side of my job.
Yes.
The majority of my employees are also college students right now. And that helps when we plan events or
Sure.
when we are doing events and they have to connect with the community as they come as patrons, to be able to understand where they might be coming from, and also talk to the college students and let them know, you know, when we do these events, when we have exhibits and stuff, it's not just for the locals. It's literally for the whole community. And we are a whole community. It's not an us and them.
Yes.
And until everybody starts having that from both sides and changing that mindset, then it's never going to change.
Wow. I really think there's a lot of value in pulling from the college and the atmosphere and the diversity that's there to help marry both of them together. I think that's wonderful. Now, we've got about 10 minutes left. Do you want to talk about Lion King?
Sure. So we are doing Lion King Jr. So in the past, just really briefly, I worked with RCT, Rexburg Community Theater, for I think like 9 years. I either was their choreographer or one of their directors, and I ran their children's theater program. For the 2 years that I did it, we almost had 200 kids.
That's a lot of kids.
It was a lot of kids, and it was very successful. They've chosen not to do children's theater, and so when somebody in the community found out that, and they found out that I worked at the city, they came to the city and asked if maybe we could start that program through the city.
Great.
So we were doing that. We have 60 kids in this program, and unlike a traditional musical, we started on June 3rd. And so we meet Monday through Friday. I know your eyebrows just went up there. You know what that means. So we started on June 3rd. We meet Monday through Friday. The leads meet from 9 o'clock to 10 o'clock to do blocking and stuff. And then all the rest of the kids from 10 to noon, just 2 hours a day. And we work hard, and we have a lot of fun. And by July 5th, we are putting on a show that you will be blown away by. So it's July 5th at 7 p.m., July 6th at 2 p.m., and 7 p.m. at the Tabernacle, which is a different way that we have to approach it. We will not have huge set pieces. If you went to Joseph in the Technicolor Dreamcoat last year, my husband did the set along with Neil Smith. The two of them are kind of partners in crime, if you will, but there's amazing artists. And so instead of working on big set pieces, we are focusing on all the headdresses, the big masks that sit on the head like at the Broadway things. And so this is going to be an amazing thing. A lot of people think of children's theater, and they're like, oh, children's theater. We don't do anything halfway. These kids are going to be amazing and will blow you away. And so it's going to be an amazing event to be a part of, to come see. It's only $5. Worth your time. It's a little over an hour show. We don't do an intermission for that reason. But it will be worth the community coming out and support. We hope the community comes out and supports it so that there's a reason to do it again.
And if I can just put a plug, because
Sure, of course.
they're at the Tabernacle practicing while the museum is open, and they are amazing. Like the stage is right over our heads.
And you can hear it all.
And we can hear it all. And we thought it was recordings that we're singing, but it's not.
Amazing.
Like we thought that, so we went out there like, whoa. These are some very talented kids. Come out, support it. And
Thank
yeah,
you.
you can
And
get
it's
the tickets
6-year-olds
right now,
to 18-year-olds. So when you think about the age range from that, you think, oh, there's no way, right? But no, the reason why we do that age range is because it gives the opportunity to bring kids from all the different schools that don't usually interact to learn from each other. The older kids learn from the younger kids to relax a little bit and not be so uptight about the theater. And the younger kids are learning the craft from the older kids. And I love the program because of that.
You know, you showed us at the pre-show a picture of one of the headdresses that's in the Lion King, and this is no joke. This isn't like this is not like a painted face with a little thing. We're talking huge, big,
huge.
nice, ornate headdresses and things.
My poor husband stays up till like 1 a.m. after
Bless
work
his heart,
working on these things, and I know there are
the giraffe
downfalls
is-
of being
I think the
married
giraffe
to
is
me.
like, what, 6 feet high?
Yeah, the giraffe
Or
is about 3 feet
off the head.
Off the head.
Wow.
Yeah, 2.5 to 3 feet off
So
the head.
very involved, very big, very. I want to say just grand, very big.
is
It's
very
not.
grand.
It's not some little kid show.
It's not.
It's actually
Yeah.
Broadway. Just
Esque.
Broadway-esque, just
It's a nod.
localized. Yeah. So
It's a total.
sounds like a great show.
Thank
Look
you.
forward to that. Anything else you would like to share about Lion King, about the museum? Anything else you'd like to share with the public?
Just that we appreciate the things that the public is doing to support us. when you see things that we're trying to do, any events that we're trying to do, we have the Teton Storytelling Festival coming up in August. The only way we can keep doing these things is if you come out. We're trying to restore the Romance Theater. The only way that we can keep doing that is for you to come out and actually come to the building. We're putting air conditioning, HVAC system in there this summer. It's closed down for that, so that we can have it open year round and do more events for the community. So we're making the effort. We just need the community to make the effort and come out to the things. Everybody asks us to do stuff, and then they're too busy to do it. And we get it. Life is busy. We don't expect you to be to everything, but if you could come out to some of this, that would be wonderful.
And my plug would be just to write back to what you asked about this research and the stories. We need your stories.
Absolutely.
We need your flood stories. We need everything. Every story is unique. We have people who come and they always share their flood story, and every one is unique. And if we don't record those or have copies of those, they're getting lost.
Please write them down.
Please
and
write
we
them
actually
down.
have an audio booth, small one, in our museum if
Oh,
you want
no
to come and
kidding.
record it. But people get scared off and won't record it. And we just need it.
Yeah.
We need them before they get lost.
Yeah.
And if you can just even Facebook us and like just send us a message, that would be my one plug. Please send us your
Please
stories.
send us stories.
Jackie, can I ask you kind of a personal question?
Okay. Sure.
Do you ever sleep?
No.
She answers it for me.
I'm serious. Like everything you have going on, everything we talked about in the show, pre-show, everything I know. I mean, I
know
follow
she
your
won't be on
Facebook
it.
feed. I'm just like, when does she have time to sleep? This is insane. How do you do it?
A lot of prayer
Okay.
and lots of water. Stay hydrated.
Oh, that is awesome. Now, and then just kind of one last thing I just was curious about, because I know we just have 5 minutes left. About the restoration efforts.
Yeah.
Are you guys focused solely on the Romance Theater, or are you also
No.
doing restoration efforts in the Tabernacle?
Sorry, I'm answering for her.
So right now it is the Romance Theater.
Okay.
Because when you go through a budget, you have to make priorities.
Sure.
And so we have to do that in phases. We have drawings for the Tabernacle. We're going to try to get grants. We would love donations. If there's somebody out there that would like to, please donate. We have an area there that's called the Annex, which is basically that little piece that's attached to the Tabernacle.
Okay.
Where the bathrooms are and the stairs are right there by the library. And that was added on years ago. It really needs to be pulled off.
Yeah.
And we have designs that are just beautiful that would be much larger, that would have an elevator in it, that would have storage rooms, would have a conference room, would have adequate bathrooms, that would actually not be attached up against the building, that would have a glass walkway between
Wow.
that building and the Tabernacle, so you could see the outside of the Tabernacle.
Oh, that'd be beautiful.
We are right now looking at researching to what they call repointing, which is the grout on the Tabernacle,
Okay.
which we'll be doing over the next year or two. So we're doing all these things. So we have multiple things going on at both buildings all the time. But that's the big thing that we'd like to do at the Tabernacle. The small thing is that we take care of the roof. We want to do the repointing. We'd like to clean the Tabernacle, the outside. If you go and walk around, you can actually see soot from when the trains used to come on through
No
the town years
kidding.
and years ago, and it really needs to be cleaned.
Wow.
So there's a lot of things like that that we've looked into. So it takes time, it takes
Yes.
money, and it takes a plan. And so baby steps,
Yep.
little by little, we're taking care of these buildings. A lot of people ask me, I have a shirt that says the venues.
Mhm.
It's the culture district, and that's because of those two historic buildings.
Yeah.
They're half a block from each other. We do our advertising underneath that name just because it's a lot easier to say than the cultural arts department.
Right. Yeah, that is true.
Type of thing.
Yeah.
For both of those buildings. But we take that serious, that we are very dedicated into making sure that that part of our history in this town does not get lost.
How old are those buildings?
Over 100 years old,
Yeah.
both of them.
The
Wow.
Tabernacle was built in 1911.
Okay.
Yeah.
And what about the Romance?
Well, that's a little
Questionable.
controversial.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's either
Gotcha.
1913 or 1917.
Okay, so
depending
after the
on-
Tabernacle.
It was after the
Okay.
Tabernacle. 1970 is the official date on
Okay.
it. But there is a story of a woman being shot on stage in
I've heard that
1913,
story.
14.
Mhm.
Her name was Mona, and she was the bulletproof woman in a vaudeville act. And so you can have me back, and I'll give you the full story. How about that?
And actually, we talked about that in the pre-show. Is having you back to talk about the Romance Theater, kind of some of the
Absolutely, yeah.
history about it, the Tabernacle.
Yeah.
Because I think, personally, I don't really know a lot of the history. I have heard of the woman getting shot in
Yeah.
there and things like that. But I think it'd be fascinating
Yeah.
for
Well, if you-
us and for the community to learn more about these two
Well,
historic
if you come
buildings.
to the museum,
Okay,
we'll tell you all
there's
about
another
it.
plug. That's right, exactly. Yep, more reason to go.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, Well, awesome. Well, thank you so much for being on the show today. We really appreciate it.
Thank
We're
you for
looking forward to
having
having
us.
you guys back to talk more about some of the other things in Rexburg and the history of Rexburg. And I mean, I feel like we just tapped into just a teeny tiny bit of the wealth of information that you ladies have. So thank you so much. Travis, do you have anything else?
No, you know, I don't have anything else. Just, again, I want to echo what Rick said. Thank you so much for your dedication, your hard work, the sleepless nights. This gal needs a case of water, apparently. And so
You can drop that off at the tabernacle.
drop it off the tabernacle with your donation. So you're exactly right. The more support we're able to give these great causes is how they operate. It's how they renovate. It's how they keep going. So let's support them. It's a great thing you're doing. Thank you for your vision, your dedication, and your love for what you're doing. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Rexburg, tune in next time. We'll be here next Wednesday. We look forward to seeing you. Thank you very much.